Insecurity takes the spotlight as the National Assembly resumes plenary after 5 weeks devoted to budget defense sessions. I'm Linda Akibe, and you're welcome to the Gavel. A huge part of discussions at plenary in both chambers of the National Assembly during the week centered on insecurity in the country. The Senate debated a motion on the spate of kidnappings and banditry, which lawmakers say have reached alarming levels. In the House of Representatives, legislators also debated a motion on the recent attacks on students and staff of the Ahmadu Bello University, Zaria, Kaduna State. Legislators in both chambers agreed on several recommendations, one of which is to invite the Minister of Communications to brief the relevant committees on the implementation of earlier recommendations connected to the mandate of his ministry.
The recent assassination of the chairman of APC in Nasarawa State, which is one of the high-profile assassinations, is still very fresh in our memories. A Chinese national a fortnight ago was abducted in my community, who are involved in road construction. And as I speak now, his whereabouts is still unknown.
Senator Emmanuel Boacha lamenting the level of insecurity in the country. Hardly a week goes by in the Senate without lawmakers discussing insecurity in the chamber. The 8th Senate organized a security summit bringing together the key actors in Nigeria's security architecture to proffer solutions. Some of the key recommendations agreed by lawmakers at the end of that summit include that the country's security infrastructure must be comprehensively reviewed and strengthened. The 9th Senate adopted these recommendations from the Security Summit of the 8th Assembly and even organized its own summit to find solutions to the security crisis in the country. However, the situation persists, with kidnapping and banditry rampant in different parts of the country. Federal lawmakers during the debate questioned the level of implementation of the recommendations from the Security Summit. They are also concerned that the kidnappers and terrorists negotiate for ransom using telephones and get away with it.
It's only in Nigeria, Mr. President, that communication facilities can be used without biometric process. No valid identification of passport details in the case of foreigners, and in a place so as to check abuse of this process. Bandits, terrorists negotiate for ransom using telephones and getting away with it. Mr. President, how can we be so negligent as a people?
We keep on hearing stories of people being kidnapped, people being killed. The last one, of course, as mentioned by the mover of this motion. Our earlier referred chairman of the APC was kidnapped from his house and was killed. These are the stories we hear every day. Every day.
At the end of the debate, the Senate asked its committees on legislative compliance and communications to meet with the Minister of Communications and discuss the implementation of the resolutions of the Senate regarding security related to the mandate of his ministry. The House of Representatives also debated a motion on insecurity. A lawmaker raised a motion of urgent public importance on the recent attacks on staff and students of Ahmadu Bello University, Zaria, in Kaduna State by bandits. According to the mover of the motion, Garba Mohammed, the university can no longer operate in a safe environment.
Cognizant that the university is a community that houses over 60,000 staff and students with origins spread across the 36 states of the Federation and Federal Capital Territory. Equally cognizant that no other tertiary institution in Nigeria is as representative of the diverse peoples and culture of our nation as the Ahmadu Bello University. Mindful, therefore, that this emergency has become a national emergency that touches on every Nigerian, and that the overriding need to protect this heritage cannot be overstated. Resolve to call on the federal government to urgently and without further delay erect a secure wall around the campuses of Ahmadu Bello University, Zaria. Call on the Inspector General of Police to urgently and without further delay establish a unit of its mobile police personnel at the institution, particularly at the Phase 2 segment of Samaru campus, to ensure security of lives and property at all times.
About 2 weeks ago, 9 students of ABU Zaria were kidnapped along the Abuja-Kaduna Expressway and a staff abducted from his home days later. The House is also asking the Chief of Army Staff to urgently establish a battalion of the Nigerian Army at the southern border of the university.
These two motions are of the same.
At an earlier debate during the week, the former Deputy Senate President Ike Ekweremadu reiterated his position on the need for the establishment of state police as a solution to address the security crisis in the country. But another lawmaker does not agree with this.
For us to begin to consider what some of us have been talking about, which is the decentralization of our police sector, so that each state should be able to have the number and the quality of police they need, because if that happened in the past, probably this would have been contained. And even some of these people who are protesting would have been members of those state police force. So I believe that this is time for us to have a rethink on this issue of the security decentralization in this country. I do hope that this is a wake-up call for all of us as leaders of this country to begin to address some of these issues, because if we don't do anything, there's the likelihood that this may happen again.
I oppose it vehemently, and I have my reasons. Given the fact that political development has not matured to a level where people are matured enough to be able to comprehend some of these things, it worries me. For example, you look at the issue of BSEC. Even as a sitting governor, when I conducted election into local government, no any other party won even a single councillorship. That means that if we put police in the hands of people at the state level, you can better imagine what will happen. And so I'm totally opposed to that. What we need to do is to reinvigorate, refocus the current police force and make them focus on security challenges that we're experiencing in the country, not to go and create more problems. Because once you create state police, it means that people are bound to engage in all kinds of shenanigans as far as the composition of those state police are concerned. Some persons can have their sons become commissioners of police, or in whatever position they put them to give them advantage over others. Now, so state police for me now is not the answer. It is for us to refocus the current police. Community policing that have been started is something that we should encourage. Because once we involve the communities into policing the environment, at least you will have some solution to some of these problems.
Meanwhile, the Senate has passed a bill to establish the National Commission Against the Proliferation of Small Arms and Light Weapons.
The National Consultation on Physical Security and Stockpile Management in 2019 in Abuja, organized by the United Nations Regional Center for Peace and Disarmament in Africa and the Presidential Committee on Small Arms and Light Weapons, revealed that Nigeria hosts 350 million or 70% of the 500 million illegal arms in West Africa. Small arms and light weapons are readily available, easy to use, and have been the primary and sole tool of violence in almost all conflict of banditry, kidnapping in our society. These weapons of terror are in the hands of irregular troops and combatants operating with scant respect for international humanitarian law. They have taken heavy toll on human lives, human property, women and children, accounting for nearly 80% of casualties. Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, in Nigeria this has become a very serious security challenge. There is general insecurity in most parts of the country, and our people are experiencing high levels of crime perpetrated using illegal arms.
The commission, when established, is expected to identify sources and routes of small arms and ammunition, finding those involved in the illicit trade, and harmonize intelligence and information collection.
President Buhari nominated the immediate past chairman of the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, Professor Mahmood Yakubu, for a second term as INEC chairman. Now, he has submitted the name of a nominee to the Senate for approval. The Senate on Thursday, November 26th, screened Professor Mahmood Yakubu And the nominee spoke about his time as INEC chairman, the challenges faced in conducting the 2019 general elections, and how the commission can conduct better elections in 2023. The immediate past chairman of electoral body INEC, who is also a nominee for that same position for a second time, appeared before the Senate Committee on INEC to be screened for the position. During the screening exercise, the nominee, Professor Mahmoud Yakubu, spoke about his tenure as chairman of the electoral body and the challenges the commission faced in conducting the 2019 general elections.
For the first time ever, the commission met with members of the Senate and House committees on INEC and electoral matters in Lagos. We had an extensive interaction and we submitted 78 areas of amendment to the Electoral Act. And on 4th November, I also forwarded additional 13 areas of amendment to the two committees. The earlier that is done, the better for us. There is no way we can conduct elections successfully in an atmosphere of uncertainty. The electoral legal framework has to be finalized for us to now develop our regulations and guidelines for the elections.
Professor Yakubu appealed to the National Assembly to pass the amended Electoral Act latest by the first quarter of 2021. He says this is critical for the success of the 2023 general elections. The chairman of the committee advised INEC on how best to ensure that they effectively use funds to conduct a successful election.
To continue to assure Nigerians that their votes will count, and we have demonstrated in recent elections that this is doable. To continue to deepen the use of technology in elections, and to continue to appeal to the National Assembly to please expeditiously conclude work on the Electoral Act so that there will be certainty in what we do. What we intend to do this time around is to ensure that things that we require for the election shouldn't wait until the election year. There are some critical aspects of our work that have to be done and concluded next year. And we just have to find the resources to do so.
We have now 18 political parties, I think from 92 to 18. And from the records we have, I believe that more political parties need to be registered. So you should go through the process. If you have passed through the screening and the Senate confirms you, you should look at the issue of the registering political parties and let's get to the minimum. From my understanding, I think we wouldn't go more than 5 and find a way out how we can continue to put guidelines properly before parties are registered.
I really have to
Meanwhile, progress is being made in the passage of the Electoral Act as a bill scaled second reading in the House of Representatives. The Petroleum Industry Bill has also passed the crucial second reading in the lower chamber.
In the growth and development of the midstream sector.
For one of the lawmakers, the Petroleum Industry Bill, when passed, will lead to the opening of the gas industry as countries look to move from usage of petrol for their cars to gas.
Immediately PIB is passed, government will convert all Nigerian cars to dual purposes. You can choose to either use gas or petrol at no cost. In addition, gas can be used to develop the power sector, electricity generation, a lot of areas, cooking, everything. So this is one of the fundamental departure between this PIB and the moribund law that we are amending.
Okay, welcome back to the Gavel. Now let's take a look at more key events in the Senate and House of Representatives during the week. On Wednesday, November 25th, the minority leader of the House of Representatives raised a motion of urgent public importance, drawing the attention of the House to alleged illegal payments by the Ministry of Foreign Affairs running into millions of dollars.
It's been alleged that these officials, 1 year after their recall to headquarters, are still receiving full entitlements such as accommodation allowance, house allowance, transport allowance, medical and utility bills, aided by staff of the Human Resources Department of the Ministry, who collect sums of money from these erring officials and internationally frustrate efforts of posted colleagues to replace those posted back to headquarters by refusing to protect the needed documentation that will enable them to resume duty at the various foreign missions.
The House Committee on Foreign Affairs has been mandated to investigate the allegations and report back in 4 weeks. Meanwhile, at a separate event, the Deputy Speaker of the House of Representatives has blamed the slow pace of development and insecurity in the country to a non-functional local government system. According to him, the need for local government autonomy cannot be overemphasized, as it will foster peaceful coexistence among Nigerians. He was speaking during a leadership training for councillors from Akwa Ibom State, organized by the House Chairman on Judiciary.
Total autonomy, if you want peaceful coexistence in this country, if you want true development. I grew up from the village. I used to know what the chairman used to do, even when we were early under the local government administration, started in 76, and there were lots of things they were doing. Part of the insecurity that we're having today is because the local government is not functioning very well. And even development that we're supposed to have across the land is because the local government is not functioning. I think we got it wrong. We started getting it wrong from 2003 when we took election of local government back to the states, and every governor would sit in conjunction with his own last year or whatever, write his own result. For me, I do not believe that is the right procedure.
The two minority leaders of both chambers harped on the need for better governance and preparation for alternative sources of revenue for the country apart from oil.
You have to show competence. Competence is what you have come here to do. You have come to learn. To be able that when you're given a responsibility, you're able to discharge that responsibility.
If you look at what is happening now globally, we all depend on oil. So, now that the oil is going to be there, but we may not be able to make use of it globally, it now becomes very imperative that you at the local level must improvise.
The chairman, Senate Committee on Aviation, Senator Smart Adeyemi, is warning of imminent dangers in the nation's aviation industry. Briefing journalists at the National Assembly, Senator Adeyemi says airline operators are cutting corners in carrying out maintenance requirements on their aircrafts because their finances have been adversely affected by COVID-19.
I want to put it on record that there is danger in flying in Nigeria today, in case you don't know. There have been instances of some planes keeping off the runway. You didn't care to find out what happened. We must support the airline operators, pending when we have our own national carrier, if we so desire. But if we want to continue with the airline operators, like most nations of the world are doing today, you cannot afford to leave the airline operators on their own, because they will want to be in business and struggle to make profit, and by extension, they'll be cutting corners. Some of them confessed to us, which they never did on the floor of the public hearing, that they have their goods at the port, that they couldn't claim them because of the charges.
He says the Nigeria Customs Service has not complied with the executive order to waive any form of taxation on importation of spare parts and commercial aircrafts, a situation which is straining airline operators struggling to survive.
We must raise alarm. The alarm I'm raising today is that the airline operators are just managing. Other countries in Africa, they are giving substantial bailout to the airlines. If you say you are not concerned, God forbid, you don't know where you will fly, or your brother will fly, or your parents will fly. So we must come out to say this to you and to Nigerian people, and to please appeal to Mr. President that there's a need to review the 4 billion naira are available.
The House of Representatives Committee on Youth Development went on an oversight visit to the National Youth Service Orientation Camp in Kubwa, Abuja. Now, the visit was to assess the safety measures put in place in the camp to protect corps members from COVID-19, as well as to find out the level of damage on equipment in the camp after the attack by hoodlums in the aftermath of the NSAS protests.
The House of Representatives Committee on Youth Development was well received at the FCT NYSC camp, Kubwa. Members of the committee were first taken to the COVID-19 testing area of the camp, where rapid tests are being done by medical graduates and results generated within 10 minutes. They were then shown the level of damage done to camp facilities by hoodlums who disrupted the NSAS protests last month. They were also shown the food storage facility of the camp and informed that some of the food were carted away by the hoodlums.
As soon as they are out of the camp, they should please keep to it. They should not forget, even if they have a white collar job, this one they should take it as the second one as green collar job that will sustain their life and move their life as well, and Nigeria will move together.
They carted away so many of our camp equipments and then destroyed some of our buildings. But we thank God that we have put that behind us, and because of that, this is what you see today. We are camping, and by the grace of God, we will continue. That is behind us, and we pray it never happens again.
The hoodlums actually just took advantage of that situation and just caused mayhem, unnecessary mayhem. You know, so it's a great pity and quite unfortunate.
According to the NYSC camp officials, the army has recovered some of the items stolen by the hoodlums. At the NYSC camp, corps members are also exposed to entrepreneurship and skills acquisition.
So when I came into the camp, I developed interest in enrolling in this skill acquisition, and I've learned a very big opportunity. I've learned a lot actually, and I'm very grateful to NYSC.
It's quite amazing. We've seen how they're engaging the corps members in different skills acquisitions, and it's a good way, you know, to help them aside from what they've learned in their various universities. This would be an additional learning curve for them with regards to being self-employed or even having their own businesses.
At the end of the tour, the chairman sums up the committee's observations and speaks on relocating the camp to a safer environment.
We saw the damages and we saw the recovery level by the NYC, by the scheme, and we are very, very impressed. The coordinator took us round, and then we commended the NYC, the Director General, the scheme itself, the Directorate itself, and then the coordinator for FCT, what they have been able to put together within a very short while, that they experienced that vandalization and cannibalization of the infrastructure of the camp. And more than that, we were very, very amazed, even despite the fact that those things happened negatively to the camping system here in FCT at Kubwa. So the corps members that are here, in fact, within this 1.5 weeks, 2 weeks, what they have learned, what they have been able to do with their hands, with their brains, and on this vocational training. So we are quite impressed. We are very impressed. It shows that Nigerian youths are ready to go places.
Now, this is where we call it a day on this week's edition of The Gavel. If you have any views on any of the issues discussed, please email us on thegavel@channelstv.com. Thank you for staying with us, and see you again next week.